Hi everyone, welcome back to Coding Problem Solving series, and today we will be solving Leetcode question 344, which is very famous by the name reverse string. Now this question has been asked in interviews for many famous companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook and Google. Now let's read the question. So it says that we have to write a function that reverses a string. Now the input string is given as an array of characters S. It also asks us to solve this problem in place, that is, with O of 1 space complexity and without taking any extra memory. Now, looking at example 1, we have been given an input array of characters S, which represents a string hello. Now, what we have to do is to reverse the characters in this array. That is, if you see the output array, the first character of the input array becomes the last character of the output array. The second character of the input array becomes the second last character, and so on until the last character of the input array goes to the first position of our output array, thus forming a character array representing the string, which is exactly a reverse form of our input string. Now similarly, going to example 2, now in example 2, we reverse the characters of the input array S in similar fashion, keeping in mind that our problem is case sensitive. Therefore, the first character becomes last and so on, just as we did in the first example. Now let's look at the two approaches that we will use to solve the problem. Now in our first approach, we will create a new array output which is of same length that of input array. Now we will use two for loops, one for traversing the input array and one for traversing the output array. Please note that we will traverse the input array in reverse, that is from the last character to the first character. In other words, from right to left. However, we will traverse the output array from left to right, that is from 0th index to length -1 using our index variable j. Now during this traversal, we will simply transfer each character from index I to index j in our output array. So our output array will look something like this. And we will end the loop once I reaches the left boundary of the input array. Now please note that since we are traversing the input array only once, the time complexity of this solution is of the order n, where n is the number of characters in the input array. However, since we are creating a new array, that is utilizing extra memory, so the space complexity of the solution becomes order of n, where n is the number of characters in the input array, and thus this solution is a brute force solution, since there is a short way of reducing this space complexity to the order 1 with our second approach. Now in our approach 2, we will try to solve the problem in place, that is without using any extra memory, using a two-pointer algorithm. Now for this, we will use two pointers I and j and place I at the first index of the input array and j at the last index of the input array. Now we will create a while loop with the condition until I less than j, and with each iteration of this while loop we will simply replace or swap the characters at I and j. So that is, after the first run or the first iteration of the while loop, the input array becomes something like this. That is, we have simply replaced the characters at index I and j. Now we will increment I by 1 to the next character and decrement j by 1 to the second last character and repeat the iteration. So the array now becomes, now again incrementing I and decrementing j, we reach to a position where I is equal to j, and finally we are able to come out of the while loop. So this state becomes our output array, which is the desired result. Now please note that since we are traversing the array just once, the time complexity of this solution is of order n. However, since we are not using any extra space in this solution, so the space complexity for this approach is of the order 1, that is a constant space. Now let's code the solution using approach 2. So here is our solution method reverse string, which takes an argument s of type character array and returns void. So let's start coding. So at first, let's create two variables I and j and initialize I at 0 and j at the last index of character array. Now let's start a while loop with a condition of I less than j and simply swap the characters at both I and j. We'll use a 3-pointer approach to swap these elements. And for each iteration of the while loop, let's increment I and j pointers as we discussed in our approach. And after coming out of the while loop, we simply return from the function, and let's try to run our solution for test case. Great. So our test case is accepted and it is passed for both the cases. Now let's try to submit the solution. Awesome. So our solution is accepted with these time and space metrics. So this brings us to the end of this video. Please like and share this video and subscribe to our channel for more informational content. Thank you and see you next time.